talked with the leadership here of Lamb Lion, Dr. Reagan and others, I'm not sure exactly which one that I should be sharing today. And it concluded that I'm going to talk a little bit here about the church. And I'm going to talk about a message that the church has compromised. And Christ died for his church. We know he loves it. It's just probably in years and decades gone by been a little more, healthy than it is today. So how did the blessed hope become the blasted hope? And how and why is there such an attack on the greatest message, 1/3 of the Bible, that the King is coming again? How did this happen? To kind of fully reveal this, I'm going to have to name some names today. So some of you may not be fully happy with all the names I name, and it's just in the interest of time, I've cut this down a little bit here. But let's go through it real quickly, and let's kind of consider, how did this happen? When did it happen? And who let it happen? How did the greatest news in the Bible become to some last days madness? These are Christians speaking, calling this last days madness. Tom Hughes, he's a pastor at Calvary Chapel, 412 Church in San Jacinto, California. He wrote an article recently, and he summed it up brilliantly. Why the church rejects Bible prophecy. These are his opinions, but I certainly agree with each and every one. And we don't have time to go into everything, but number one, he feels pastors don't understand it. Perhaps their seminary didn't train them to deal with eschatology. He feels that they fear offending members. They fear offending those attending their church. Can you imagine that the greatest news that Jesus Christ is coming, perhaps today, could possibly offend someone? But in fact it does. They don't want to scare people. And if we look at some headlines today, they certainly can be a bit foreboding. He feels that the pastors, the church leadership might lose tithes if they talk about the end. If you've got a building program going to take 10 years, the Lord's coming back tomorrow, who's going to give to the building program? Well, these are Tom's opinions, and frankly, I do agree, having ministered in the churches a long time, and they might be identified with the loony fringe. There has been a loony fringe, Harold Camping and others, the date setters, and they don't want to be aligned, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. So those are just some of the reasons Pastor Tom Hughes wrote in this article that has been picked up and republished just about everywhere. Okay, another reason this message has declined is that there is a decline in dispensationalism. Now, when I was young, growing up, teenager, in my 20s and all, every evangelical church believed in dispensationalism. The basics that distinguishes between the church and Israel. It believes in the literal rapture, the literal tribulation, the literal Antichrist millennium, the literal second coming. So there's a decline in all of this, and the belief that the timing of the rapture can be debated. We'll still be friends. It's hard, folks, if you don't believe in pre-trib, but we can still be friends. We can debate and not divide over some of these issues. And then, again, the emphasis on Israel's end-time role. The tribulation is for Israel and for the pagan world, for Israel. So these are some of the basics of dispensationalism, and all of this is declining interest in the church in this theology, and I'm calling just some destructive theologies, and honestly we could write encyclopedia on destructive theologies, but have come in, and amillennialism is very old and takes nothing literally. It wouldn't have any favorable impression of Israel's end-time role. This kingdom now, dominionism has come on the scene now, and that says that the church, if we work hard enough and get enough social justice programs, we can make the world perfect. And how's that working out? That's going to take 20 trillion years for the church to make the world perfect. Preterism. How do you possibly believe that all Bible prophecy happened in 70 AD? We missed it. We missed it. It all happened. It's history. That's what preterists believe. Another destructive theology that's crowding out what I think probably 100% of us believe would be replacement theology. The church is the new Israel. That's just working its way in. It's even working its way into once extremely solid denominations and churches. Christian Palestinianism, that deserves a message on its own. Some of you might have remembered Yasser Arafat being lowered from a helicopter to the top of the Church of the Nativity in 2004. The belief of Christian Palestinianism being that Jesus was a Palestinian, he wasn't even Jewish, and so we celebrate the Palestinian people. There's no such thing as a Palestinian, okay? That's another message, but there isn't. Nonetheless, Christian Palestinian is in them, you know what I'm trying to say, is creeping into our churches, and some of them one sound. Okay, so let's look at some attacks on what we believe. Christian Today, not Christianity Today, Christian Today. Why a zombie invasion is more likely than a religious apocalypse. Christian Magazine out of the UK. A zombie apocalypse is more likely than the playing out of the Bible prophecy outlined in the Bible. Okay? Well, just these are, you might say, well, these are extreme, Jan. I'm sorry, they're not. Every year, my conference in the fall gets hung. Jan Markell's End Time Hysteria Conference. This is coming from Christians. Again, Last Days Madness. Because, again, the message that most of us here love is at best mocked, and at worst, well, people get really ugly. Okay? If you hear this particular article said, for centuries Bible prophecy pundits have predicted the end is near. They appeal to the same types of signs, wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, famines, false religions. They had one thing in common: they've all been wrong. Well, not so, not so. So I started looking around, and I saw that other organizations were raising the same question I'm asking. This is Friends of Israel, a wonderful outfit, pro-Israel, pro-Jewish evangelism type ministry to the Jewish people. Whatever happened to the rapture? And probably if I wanted to rename my title, put a new title on this message, it might be something like this: whatever happened to the rapture? So others are asking. I was kind of relieved because I didn't want to be the only one out there picking on people, even though the most frequent email Olive Tree Ministries gets is, where can I find a church that will not marginalize 1/3 of the Bible? Eschatology. Can you name it? Can you name it? You fill in the blank city. Would you refer a church? Because they cannot find a church that talks about this glorious good news. These people have hurt the cause. Edgar Weisenhunt, 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Be in 1988. He missed it, and then what these folks do, what makes it even worse, they come out that, well, we missed it by a few, it's going to be 1989. 89 reasons why it'll be in 1980. This is what they do, and they throw egg on the face of all of us. And I go back to that article by Tom Hughes. It's why some don't want to align themselves, pastors and leaders, because they might be identified with the date setter. And again, Harold Camping, Judgment Day, he said May 21st, 2011. Didn't happen. And he said, well, I calculated wrong. It's going to be October 2011. Of course, it didn't happen. So who can blame a Christian leader for not wanting to be aligned with this? And so I think that these gentlemen have come along in the last 40 years or so and thrown that proverbial cold water on this wonderful, wonderful message. Now, I need to deal with this gentleman for just a minute or two. I'm going to play a clip as well. Hank Hanegraaff has done enormous damage. Enormous, enormous damage. He's a preterist. He believes all prophecy happened in 70 AD. He cannot stand what you and I all believe. Problem is, he's had a 30-year ministry on radio, and he wrote this book. This was his response to Left Behind. And he thought it's the Apocalypse Code. It was his preterist theology. And by the way, when he finally declared himself a preterist, it took him years to do that. His support went just like this. So the listenership, he's hung on nonetheless. Dr. Thomas Ice reviewed that book. He said the great majority of the book, Apocalypse Code, is a rant against Hannah Graf's distorted view of dispensationalism. I told you it's kind of in being attacked. Distorted view of dispensational in general, and Tim LaHaye in particular. And Thomas Ice goes on to say, as he's reviewing this book, there is precious little exegesis, if any, at all, to support his preterist idealist eschatology. However, there are great quantities of some of the most vicious tirades against Tim LaHaye and many other Bible prophecy teachers that I have ever read in print. Again, trying to make the blessed hope the blasted hope. Now let me just play a real short clip of Hank where, here again, 30 years of this, and at the end of this little clip, he says, you know what, there's no such thing as any chosen people. So now we're getting into, we're not only going to deny, let's say, the rapture and all the other things that we believe along with that, even a millennium, etc. We're going to come against the Jewish people.
What I'm trying to understand is, where do they get the teaching that the church will be raptured out and will not have to go through tribulation? Where is that found at?
It's not found. That's the whole point. The point is, it's something that is imposed on the Scripture. The notion is a very new notion in church history. It's a 19th century notion that was popularized by John Nelson Darby. And it comes with the presupposition that God has two distinct people. And therefore, he has two distinct plans for the two distinct people. And he has two distinct phases of the second coming and two distinct destinies. This, however, is an imposition on Scripture, because the truth of it is, God has only always had one chosen people, one covenant community, beautifully connected by the cross and illustrated by a cultivated olive tree. In Paul's letter to the Romans. So the point here is that all those who are followers of Jesus Christ are the one chosen people. And this is prior to the cross as well, because all that look forward to Christ prior to the cross are God's covenant chosen people. And the covenant chosen people are made up of people from every tongue and language and nation and people. You're not a son of Abraham because of some genealogical construction. You are a son of Abraham because you believe in the God of Abraham.
So the Jews just got disinherited. This goes over the airwaves now for 30 years, and it's done huge damage. Mr. Hanegraaff joined the Greek Orthodox Church, I believe, one of the Orthodox churches, a year or two ago, and a number of radio outlets, including the entire bot network, dropped Hank Hanegraaff, but the damage had been done. Okay, another name I have to name because damage has been done. Pastor Rick Warren wrote a book some years ago, Purpose-Driven Life. I don't have any issues with Purpose-Driven Life, but I do have issues with what he's saying on page 285 of that book, where he misquotes Jesus and suggests that Jesus said, "The details of my return are none of your business." What is your business is the mission I have given you. Focus on that. Well, obviously, when Jesus was troubled by the Pharisees not knowing the signs of his first coming, he wants the church to know the signs of his return. And Pastor Warren went on to say, he says, those who focus on Bible prophecy are not fit for the kingdom of God. Again, it's done damage. It's done huge damage. It's enabled the blessed hope to become the blasted hope. Now, Pastor Warren, in March of this year, went back on all of this. I think he'd gotten pressure over the years. He said, I'm relenting on this kind of a message. And I don't know his heart, but I'm glad to hear that he's certainly taking another look at it. And in defense of him, he certainly is taking another look at it. Okay, Tim Challies is a popular blogger, Reformed theology. He says, there are 7 false teachers in the church today. One is the speculator. The speculator obsesses about end times, and somehow his failed predictions dissuade neither him nor his followers. None of you are obsessing about end times. That's the tragedy, is the whole perception is wrong. We're not obsessing, we're rejoicing that God has allowed some of us to be able to have eyes that are perusing headlines and seeing headlines as a harbinger of his return. And that again reminds us of the only hope we have in a hopeless world, and it's getting more hopeless literally every day. Thank God for the 1/3 of the Bible that is hopeful. Now, another attack, and I'm going to spend just a minute on this. I'm going to play another short clip here. Another attack, and I've never seen it so vicious, that's coming against people like myself, J.D. Farag, and others, is the attack on the pre-trib rapture. How this has happened, well, this little clip here will help explain a little bit, but I never thought I would see in my lifetime the kind of assault on pre-tribulation theology, which is in the Bible. And to me, it's as clear as can be in the Bible. But those that are attacking and those that are contending against pre-trib are contending contentiously. I'm going to play a clip here of Joel Richardson, and he is going to say to pastors, if you're not equipping your flock to meet the Antichrist, that's the worst service you can do to your church. 4-hour nonsense film filled with nothing but baloney. It's available online if you ever want to spend a lot of money to watch 4 hours of this, and I'll stop there. But again, these things do damage. That's all I'm saying. As the product spread, the message spreads online. John Nelson Darby rolling over in his grave if he knew what people were saying about him, that he started this whole theology. Of course he didn't. He may have popularized it somewhat, but my goodness, they were back in the early church. They were saying Maranatha to one another. They were expecting the Lord's return during the early church. Now here's another voice. I'm going to play another clip here. Now some of you, if you're not an online person, you won't know who Rick Wiles is, but he's a very popular online broadcaster. He's a conservative. He's also, as far as I can tell, he's an evangelical. He talks about the Lord a lot. But when you hear what he's saying, again, all I'm saying is damage is being done by lots of people in our internet world. A click of a mouse spreads this next message around the world in literally seconds.
All right, the secret pre-trib rapture story and Christian Zionism, that's a two-headed monster. Yeah. It's a two-headed freak monster, okay? They come together. Both of them come together because they were started by the same people. The Christian Zionists started the pre-trib rapture doctrine.
And this was seed planted decades ago, but it came into full fruit within the last 30 years.
They had to create the pre-trib rapture doctrine to justify Christian Zionism. That's where it all came from. But isn't it interesting that in the recent decades, where the American evangelical church has been taken over by Christian Zionism, that the American evangelical church has lost its flavor.
Yes.
It's lost its saltiness. It is of no use anymore to God in this country.
Right. In fact, things are worse off now than they were 30 years ago.
We've become a pagan nation.
We're Babylon.
We're Babylon, and it happened on the watch of the Christian Zionists. I'm laying it on your doorstep, Christian Zionists. You are the cause of America's decline.
Those are strong words.
They're strong words, and I mean it. They took control of the churches in America, the Christian Zionists. They changed the gospel. They took Jesus off the cross. They replaced the cross with the Star of David. They took the focus off God and holiness. They put it all on a piece of land in the Middle East, and America has gone to hell. America's gone to hell. We've become a pagan, heathen nation because the Christian Zionists have taken our eyes off Jesus.
Well, frankly, I wish Christian Zionists had that kind of influence, but we don't. How many of you remember, well, I know you all remember Francis and Edith Schaeffer, wonderful people, the little Brie fellowship they had in Switzerland, and the wonderful books they wrote, ministry they had. Their son Frank Schaeffer, and in the 1970s, he was making 80s, he was making some wonderful movies. Somewhere along the way, he went sideways. And again, he's doing damage. That's all I'm saying. You put all this together, damage is being done. The message that the king is coming is being compromised. This is Frank or Frankie Schaeffer on MSNBC.
Yeah, you have to understand that the evangelical Christian movement in America latched onto a 19th century concept that was hatched by someone called John Nelson Darby, who said that Jesus could not come back until Israel had been restored as a nation peopled by Jews and Jerusalem was the capital. This is not traditional Christian teaching going back into the ages, even of the Protestant church. You know, this was not a concern of Martin Luther or any Roman Catholic or the Greek Orthodox or anyone else. If you want to update to the present, you know, when I was a kid with my parents in their ministry of L'Abri, we had a number of Christian leaders come by, and one of them had written, Hal Lindsey had written a book called The Late Great Planet Earth, in which he predicted the end times coming in 1980s. He said it's now possible because Israel has been restored. And then others came back and said, no, Jesus can't come back yet because Jerusalem's not restored. Fast forward to the 16 books and 4 films that you had that came out of the Left Behind series, written by a friend of mine, Jerry Jenkins, and his sidekick co-author that wrote it with him. And you've got 60 million copies sold that essentially are total fiction. I'm going to give you an analogy. This is as if the Twilight Zone had been taken as gospel by some religious group, and they were going back through old episodes and basing an entire cultic kind of religion on it. Now you...
Okay, so now what we believe is cultic. You put all this together, and damage has been done. And the glorious message, the good news message, has been marginalized, compromised, made fun of. Of course, all of that's fulfilling Scripture as well. Countries and some from Canada, but you still know America's been through some tough couple of weeks. And I maintain part of the reason why is what I'm going to talk about in the next 5 minutes. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, particularly in this Supreme Court issue, none of you would deny the fact that it's tumultuous, it's upsetting. As a matter of fact, it's heartbreaking. Jack Hibbs called me yesterday morning at my office. We both said to each other we were weeping this week, just shedding tears over the contention, over what's happening to basically a good man. As we speak, the Arch of Palmyra, which was an arch right outside of the Temple of Baal. Folks, do you know what went on in the Temple of Baal? I'm not going to spoil our day and start talking about it. It's a pagan place, it was, way back. This is the arch in Syria. Actually, ISIS destroyed it. So what's happening is replicas of the Arch of Palmyra. Again, it was outside of, right outside of Temple of Baal or Baal. It's been making its way around the world, being lauded, celebrated. Because the world is in the hands of the wicked one, that's why. So where is it as we speak? It is right in the heart of Washington, D.C. This was Wednesday of this week. A gal by the name of Emily Zimmer took these pictures. That's 2 congressmen underneath at the replica of the Arch of Palmyra, which stood outside of the Temple of Baal, perhaps the most ungodly, unspeakably unholy place in ancient times. And you can see it is in the shadow of our capital. You wonder why there's turmoil in our land? We have congressmen right here. I saw the ceremony online. or in the video that Scal sent me. A celebration of this ancient, despicable entryway to the temple of Baal or Baal, where child sacrifice took place. And isn't this current controversy? I'm going to be blunt. Okay, Amir calls me Golda Meir. I'm going to be Golda Meir right now. All this Arch of Baal was all about child sacrifice. What's going on in Washington, D.C. as we speak right now is all about child sacrifice, okay? It's all about abortion. So this is standing as I speak. It's standing right now with the Capitol in the background. That's Elliot Engel and another congressman who were part of the celebration of the Arch of Palmyra leading to the Temple of Baal. You don't do that, folks, in a country and then expect God's blessing. Now, we can still be salt and light and delay the decay. That's why we're here. We're here to learn how to become salt and light, delay the decay, and also to be uplifted knowing time is short. So whatever we're going to do, we need to do it quickly, I believe. Now I want to say just a few more words here. Again, I agree with Hal Lindsey in this article. What's going on is spiritual warfare. Interviewing Amir Tsarfati yesterday, we talked about how much Satan hates Israel. Well, guess what? Satan hates America too. And he's trying to bring both down. And the spiritual warfare that's going on over this country and Israel is almost unheard of levels. If Jesus returns, this is the anti-God sentiment in America. The hatred that's coming at us. And that's, again, it's why you're here, is to become fortified to go back and be the light and counter this darkness. I found this interesting. Top Israeli rabbi believes Trump will build third temple in Jerusalem. Well, yeah, whether that's true or not is irrelevant. The point is, they're talking about it over there. The point is, the hour's late. And I have with me, and I'll bring it later, the coin, the shekel. Picture of Donald Trump and King Cyrus. No, I'm not saying Donald Trump is a perfect person and president. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying Israel is starting to talk about things that we never would have heard 10, 15, 20 years ago. Never. It's because the hour is so late. That's the good news. And Jackie referred to that as well. That's the good news. Now, I want to make one more comment. And I've got a whole message on globalism, the one world system. To hear him this week, Donald Trump, put down the idea of a one world system, believe me, a lot of us, yeah. Whether you like him or can't stand him, doesn't matter. He's given a reprieve, at least from the globalist efforts. That's why this world is the globalists are in turmoil. They can't figure out, number one, what happened. Number two, what to do about it. Number three, how to regain control of their one world system, which is, that, of course, what the Bible talks about. Revelation 13, other places. One world system. These men have been thrown again. Donald Trump got up there and said to the UN, nuts to globalism, yes to patriotism. I have a whole teaching on it, Hidden in Plain View, the New World Order and Bible Prophecy. It's on my table out there if you'd like to get a hold of it. Again, I just find it stunning. I mean, God's using a very unorthodox man. We can all agree on that. President Trump is very unorthodox. Amir can share with you all the things he's done for Israel's benefit. I don't have to. But the biggest shock back in November 2016 is when the one-worlders were completely, totally undone, and their godless plan was at least delayed. It'll happen eventually, but it is delayed. I want to say a word about Brigitte. Brigitte Gabriel is my speaker, or my radio guest next weekend. It's already taped. And I just want to make an appeal on Brigitte. She asked me to. She's got this new book, Rise, in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. And she wanted to get on Fox, because you see her on Fox all the time, and talk about it. I can tell you, and she's told me this, I'm not a Fox insider, she told me that Fox is heading left. The Murdoch sons will not let her on to talk about this. It's a warning on immigration. And believe me, I live in the land. I'm in little Mogadishu here. If you want to see what happens when unlimited immigration happens, move to Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's got some challenges, and I'll stop there. So she said, would you have your folks, would you tell them that they can get this online? I've read the book, it's outstanding. It's just Homeland Security issues, it's excellent. She said, I can't advertise at certain places, including Fox, because they want to be diverse, tolerant, multicultural, and they're leaning left now. So I'm giving an appeal to go online or to a bookstore and get her book, Rise. And she'll be my guest next week. Michelle emailed me last night and this morning. Pray for her work at Skyline United Nations, Skyline United Nation, SkylineUN.com. Sign up for prayer items there. And she was in a meeting a few days ago. She was at the UN gatherings. She was in a room with Egypt's President El-Sisi. And Amir can address this better than I, but El-Sisi has made the choice. He met with evangelicals in New York. Now, remember, Egypt is home to the Muslim Brotherhood. He's trying to turn all that around, El-Sisi is, and be a friend to Israel. So, and he's not in the Gog-Magog war or anything like that. So pray for El-Sisi. And she met with him. Joel Rosenberg met with him. This